How's it going, guys? Jake here, and today we're going to take a look at the Minecraft mod Galacticraft. Now this adds space travel to your Minecraft world, and because of that, well, it comes along with quite a few items and machinery, so that's why I'm going to be breaking this mod up into 3 different parts. The first part is going to be just the most basic way to get to the moon. Might not be that efficient, but it's just one of the most basic ways to get there. The second part we'll be talking about the advanced machinery and other things that you can add on and make space stations and just, take your space exploration to the next level. And the third part is going to be talking about a mod addition to this base mod of Galacticraft planets, and it adds other planets that you can go to. But besides that, this is part 1, talking about what's one of the most basic ways just to get to the moon. So these are the 4 new ores added into your Minecraft world. We have copper, aluminum, tin, and silicon. Now these first 3 are very common, but silicon can be pretty rare to find. So you're going to be using these all the time, so it's very important that you gather up a lot of it. Okay, now let's move on to basic machines. So first I'm going to talk about these 4 items, and the first 2 are tin canister and copper canister. Now to make these, it will be 7 tin ingots and 7 copper ingots, and you'll get 2 of whichever canister. Now these will just pop up in random recipes, so I just wanted to knock them out of the way and just say, hey, this is how you make them. Now with these aluminum wires, the heavy aluminum wire you won't really see just because it's for more advanced machinery, but the basic one will not only be in recipes, but also it's used to connect machines together and transfer electricity. And to make this, you need 3 aluminum ingots and 6 wool of whatever color, and you'll get 6 aluminum wires. So I'll take another one of these. So we're going to move on to the first way of making electricity, and that is the coal generator. This is the first way this mod allows you to make electricity. Now to make this, you're going to need 3 copper ingots, 4 iron ingots, a furnace, and an aluminum wire. We're going to go ahead and take this. The next machine you're going to want to make is the circuit fabricator. Now to make this, you're going to need 2 aluminum ingots, 2 buttons, 2 aluminum wires, a redstone torch, a lever, and a furnace. Now this will allow you to make more complex wafers and circuits that will then allow you to make more advanced machinery that you're going to need. I'm going to take the stack of coal as well because that's what powers the coal generator. Now I have both of them set up. Let me grab some aluminum wire here. And you'll see that they have these square outlets. Now if I shift and right click, you'll see that an aluminum wire connects both. Now if I shift and right click on the aluminum wire, you can see I can make a trail to connect to other machines. Let's go ahead and put the coal in the coal generator. Now after a quick heating process, once it reaches 100%, it will start producing electricity. As you can see, it's going right there. If we hop over to the circuit fabricator, you'll see that the energy meter is being filled up, and you'll see this kind of complex GUI, but it's actually very simple. In this top left, you'll see this diamond. Next, you'll see these 2 slots, and this is where silicon ore is used, and it's actually one of the only places that it's used in the game. Next, there's a redstone slot, as you can see there. And then this slot, the top right, is really where all the magic happens. So I have the 3 different wafers you make with this machine, and depending on what you put in that slot, it will make a certain wafer. So to make 3 basic wafers, you need to put a redstone torch. To make an advanced wafer, you need to put a redstone repeater. And to make a blue solar wafer, which I'll get to in the next part because it's used to make solar panels, which are a little more complex, it takes a lapis lazuli. So those are the 3 basic wafers. The basic and the advanced wafer are going to be the most common that you use. Now if there's nothing powering this machine, then this energy storage, once it's full, it would only last for so long when you're using this machine. But as long as there's coal being fed and generating here, you can use this machine. Okay, now let's move on to one of the most important parts of the beginning of making your rocket, and that is getting your metal. Now the first thing you're going to need to make is a compressor. Now with the circuit fabricator, you can make this because you're going to need a basic wafer. So you're going to need 6 aluminum ingots, an anvil, a copper ingot, and as I said, a basic wafer, and you'll get the compressor. Now it makes several compressed types of metals. You've got compressed copper, tin, aluminum, iron, steel, and bronze. Now to make this, it's quite simply just put 2 ingots of that metal and it'll compress it into 1 sheet. So it's the same for tin, aluminum, and even iron. But to make steel and bronze, it's a little bit trickier. For steel, you'll take a compressed iron and 2 coal to make 1 steel plate. For bronze, you'll take 1 compressed copper and tin to get 1 bronze plate. So it's a little bit different way of making those. Now you'll see this whole set of heavy duty pickaxes and armor, and to make this, well, it's the same way you'd make any set of armor, but you just basically replace all of the metal with the compressed steel. Now all this is about as effective as iron armor, or iron tools, but it has a much greater durability compared to iron tools. So if you want to spend, a decent amount of iron and coal to make this, well, then you'll be greatly rewarded with the durability increase. So now let's move on to the NASA workbench. Now to make this, you're going to need a crafting table, 4 compressed steel, 2 levers, a redstone torch, and an advanced wafer. Let's go ahead and take this. If we set this down, you'll see that it is an awesome looking crafting table for your rocket. If we right click on it, it's got this rocket shaped GUI with a bunch of empty slots and 3 slots at the top. Now, once you fill all these in with the correct components, you'll have the rocket come out in this bottom right. So let's go ahead and take a look at those components. First up, we have the nose cone. Now to make this, you're going to need a redstone torch and 3 heavy duty plates. Now this is where making a rocket comes a bit expensive, because to make this, you're going to need 2 compressed bronze, 2 compressed aluminum, and 2 compressed steel to make 2 heavy duty plates. So you're not only going to need 3 heavy duty plates for this, you're going to need 8 heavy duty plates just in general for the main body. Then for 4 rocket fins, you're going to need to make 2 compressed steel and 4 heavy duty plates just for 1 fin, so you have to duplicate this 4 times. And then for the tier 1 rocket engine, you need flint and steel, a button, 4 of these heavy duty plates, 1 of those tin or copper canisters, and an oxygen vent. And to make this vent, all you need is 3 compressed tin and a compressed steel as such. So let's take all 4 of these parts, and then you're going to need, well, depending on how much storage you want in your rocket, the max is 3 chests, so let's go ahead and take 3. Now if we come in here, you can just shift and right click and it'll automatically place the parts where they belong. So you got your engine, your 4 rocket fins, your 8 heavy duty plates, and your nose cone. Now, because I want this to have the maximum storage, just because I can place 3 chests in there, so it's going to have 56 room of storage. And then we have this tier 1 rocket. Let's go ahead and take this. And now you might notice this black thing at the top of my screen, and well, that's because I'm carrying a massive rocket. Now, I don't know how I'm that strong to do that, but it looks pretty cool. But before we move on to launching this, we need to get some fuel for it. So let's go onto this launching section. So we're going to first need rocket launch pads. Now to make this, you're going to need 3 compressed iron and 3 blocks of iron, and you'll get the 9 launch pads that you need. So let's go ahead and take these. And then we have a fuel loader and a refinery. And this is about the time that I should mention that there is a new liquid added into your world called oil. Now we have a little pool of it over here, and it's a very dark liquid. And when you enter it, it's about the same movability as water, but it's a very dark and cloudy look when you're inside it. So this will commonly spawn underneath deserts, but you can find it underground anywhere, but it's just mainly in deserts. So to harvest it, it's just like what you do with water. You would just right click with a bucket and you'll get an oil bucket. Now to make it an empty canister, you're going to need 6 compressed tin, compressed steel, a glass, and 1 of those tin canisters. I'm just going to take 3 because. And then we need a fuel loader. To make this, you need 5 compressed copper, 2 compressed tins, a basic wafer, and a tin canister. And finally, we're going to need a refinery. Now to make this, you need 2 copper canisters, 2 stone, not cobblestone, 2 compressed steel, and a furnace. Let's take this as well. So once you found some oil, you're going to go to a refinery that you made. And now I'm using this infinite battery just to power all these machines, but you need to use that coal generator, and I'll get to batteries and solar panels in the next episode because it's a little more complex, and this is just the basic way to get there. So I'm just using this so I don't, have to plop a coal generator down every time, but you will have to if you're trying to go to space. So we have an oil bucket. We placed it in, and you can see that it filled this tiny spot with oil. So you can fill this up quite a bit, so it has a lot to refine. Now over here, you'll see that the fuel tank is slowly filling up. So it's refining this oil into fuel. Now, if we place an empty canister on top, you'll see that it's slowly filling up with the fuel that's being placed in here. Now this will fill up to 1,000 fuel, and 1,000 fuel will completely fill up your rocket. So 1 canister will fill up your rocket entirely. Now you can use that full rocket to get to the moon and back, but other planets will take more fuel, so eventually you're going to need to take multiple fuel canisters and reload on whatever planet. But for right now you should be good to just go to the moon and back with one canister, but I recommend to always take an extra fuel canister and the things that you need to fuel up the rocket, just in case something goes wrong and your fuel disappears or some glitch happens, because otherwise you're stuck on the moon forever. Okay, now we have this filled fuel canister that is completely full. And if we go ahead and place our rocket launch pads down, you need to place it in a 3x3 grid, and you'll see that there's that tiny platform that pops up. That means that it is a activated launch pad. So we can go ahead and right click and place our rocket down. Now I'd recommend that you check this pre-launch checklist, and now this will include like 1 or 2 things like batteries that I'm not going to go over in this episode, but you'll still be able to get to the moon and back with what I'm telling you to do. But you should still double check that checklist, just because if you go there and you're missing something, you're either going to die or not going to be able to come back. So it's pretty serious. So let's take a look at this fuel loader. Now if you set it down with the rocket on your right, you'll notice that there's this circle pointing towards the rocket. That means that the fuel is going to go into the rocket. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now I'm going to place my battery in here to give it energy. And if we take this fuel canister, it'll put fuel in this machine. And as you can see, this bar is slowly going down. That's because it's loading into my rocket. Now if I right click on the rocket, now it'll say space to launch, then you can just turn around with A, S, and D, as you can see my rocket's moving, and then G to check inventory and fuel. So because I had 3 chests, I have this massive inventory I can store stuff with, and you can see that my fuel is now 100%. It's completely loaded. You can press shift to get out of the rocket as well. Now let's move on to our last chest, about the space gear, because you need oxygen tanks and all that to survive on the moon. Now if we hit E, now since I'm in survival mode, and go to our Galacticraft tab, you'll see that we have all these other armor spaces to place our stuff. Now this top slot is not in the Galacticraft main mod right now, it's in another edition, but what I do remember from previous mods is that it adds a shield around you, but for right now, since it's not here, we're not going to talk about it. So now let's move on to the main gear you're going to need to make, starting with the oxygen mask. Now to make this, you're just going to need an iron helmet and 8 glass panes surrounding that. So let's go ahead and take this. Next, if you're going to want to talk to any of the alien life up there, you're going to need a frequency module. Now to make this, you're going to need a basic wafer, 2 redstone, a redstone repeater, 2 compressed iron, and a compressed aluminum. Let's go ahead and take this. Now to use your oxygen, you're going to need your oxygen gear. Now to make this, you're going to need 5 fluid pipes and an oxygen concentrator. Now to make the fluid pipes, all you need to place 3 glass panes on top and bottom of your crafting table. You'll get 6 of these. And to make the oxygen concentrator, you're going to need 4 compressed steel, 3 compressed tin, 1 of those tin canisters, and an oxygen vent, as I already showed how to make. Let's go ahead and take this. And then when you come back to Earth, since there's gravity, we're going to need a parachute to stop us from falling. Now to make this, you're going to need 3 canvas and 3 string. And to make canvas, you're going to need 5 string and 2 sticks to make 1 canvas. So let's go ahead and take this. Now if we go on our other slot, we're going to place all these on. You can see we have a tiny antenna on top of our head, and we have the glass of our oxygen mask around our head. Now let's move on to gathering oxygen. So first you're going to need an oxygen collector. To make this, you're going to need 3 compressed steel, 2 compressed aluminum, 1 of those oxygen concentrators, 1 of those oxygen vents, tin canister, and an oxygen fan. Now to make the fan, you're going to need 4 compressed steel, basic wafer, and a redstone. Let's go ahead and take this. And then you're going to need an oxygen compressor to fill your tanks. Now to make this, you're going to need 4 compressed steel, 3 compressed aluminum, a compressed bronze, and 1 of those oxygen concentrators as well. Now we have different types of tanks. We have a light tank, a medium tank, and a heavy oxygen tank. To make the light, all you're going to need is 1 canister, 1 compressed copper, and lime wool at the top. To make a medium, you're going to need 2 tin canister, 2 compressed tin, and 2 orange wool, so it is a set color of wool that you need. To make a heavy tank, you need the 3 tin canisters, 3 compressed steel, and 3 red wool. Now I'm going to take one of these empty ones to fill, and I already have one that is full. Now you join me in a little bit different of an area. That's because you need to be next to some trees for this to work, because this will work the fastest when it's surrounded by leaves. If you go ahead and click on this, well, first I'm going to power it up. And so now we have our in of energy, so this can have a good amount of energy. And we're storing oxygen. As you can see with the nice particles around, it's collecting some oxygen. Now, this by itself won't do anything without the oxygen compressor. Now, another thing to notice, you'll see this circle here. That means it needs to be lined up next to another machine in order for it to have its out input. So you'll notice that this is going up and down at the same time as it is filling this oxygen storage up. Let's go ahead and power this one up. In essence, we're completely full on energy and oxygen. If we're going to place or fill any oxygen tank, we're going to need to place it in this slot down here. You'll notice that the oxygen is filling up, and as that bar on the bottom is going up. Now this is constantly being refueled, the oxygen storage, because it's coming from this oxygen collector. That's why I put them against the circles, so it can go from one machine to the other. Now, let's say I had a fully loaded oxygen tank that I wanted to empty so I could use later. Well, that's what this O2 slot appears for. If you want to put oxygen in the storage area, if it's, close to being empty, then you'll place your tank here, and any amount of oxygen it can put in this in slot, it will do. So we're going to wait until this thing gets completely filled with oxygen. Okay, now as it says, our status is our oxygen tank is full. I'm going to go ahead and take my battery. So now we have 2 full oxygen tanks. Now we're back to our rocket, and if we go ahead and go to our Galacticraft inventory, we'll place both these heavy oxygen tanks in those slots, and now we're ready to go to space. So let's right click on our rocket. We have a 20-second countdown once we hit space. So let's hit it. Now it'll automatically start because I have all the equipment necessary, but if you don't, like a parachute, then it'll warn you and say, hey, you need this, otherwise, there's no coming back really. So it will give you a last chance if you don't have what you need, but since I do, we're taking off. And it does the final countdown. Then, well, the flames come out at the bottom and you're going to start going up. And you'll see the meter on the left of the screen, and once it hits the top, then we'll be in space. Now everything goes white until you look down and you'll see the Earth. Now all the land goes away, and then it's this small cube, small, in parentheses. And then we're, well, on our way to the moon, and I'll see you when we get there. So we're almost there to our point, and as you can see that the Earth's just getting smaller and smaller, and it's gotten way darker. And our antenna's almost reached the top of the meter. There we go. Now we're at the solar system map. So you can see all the list of all the planets, and the only one that is green is the overworld because that's the only one we can go to right now. Now the More Planets mod will add, well, more of these planets in tier 2 and tier 3 rockets. But because we're not there, let's go to the overworld. Now I could just hit launch, which is at top right of the screen, to go to the overworld, but, well, we're wanting to go to the moon. So let's select the moon. So we zoom in, and there's the moon. As you maybe have saw, that you can create a space station using these materials. I'll get to that in the next episode, as I'm going to talk about space station and how to make a nice one. But for now, let's go to the moon. So now since we have the moon selected, we're going to hit launch. We're going to take one giant leap. Now we need to hold space to slow down our entry velocity down to 10 meters a second. Now right now you can't see the moon because it's that dark, but soon the land will start to show. As you can see, the stars are slowly going away because the land is now within sight, and soon it'll start lighting up. There we go. And now since we get closer, we're slowing down to 1.5 meters a second. And touchdown. Now to exit, you're going to need to hit shift. And right when you leave, your oxygen will start being used. So if we went here, you'll see that this oxygen tank is slowly counting down. So because these carry 2,700 oxygen points, you can use these, would be fine for quite a while. And you've got your oxygen meter up at the top right there. Now you have this massive lander, and the only thing that this is really used for now is to give you your rocket and your rocket pad back. Now, any extra fuel that's here that wasn't used from your rocket, you can collect with an empty canister. So I just quickly grabbed one of those. So if we place it in here, you'll see that we have 600 fuel out of that 1,000 that we put in our rocket remaining. So we have plenty to get back to the Earth, especially since the moon doesn't have as high of gravity, so it won't take as much fuel. Now, you can leave this if you wanted to, but you can just also click on it to eventually destroy it, just like you would with a boat. After several clicks, it goes away. As you saw, if you look up, you can see the Earth. So instead of the moon being on the Earth is now basically your moon. So And also there's the sun over there, and as you notice, I am taking much bigger jumps than usual because of low gravity. Another thing is that wherever you walk, you will leave footprints. Now these will eventually fade away, so don't get worried about, always having to see these wherever you're walking, but they will after time go away. So now as you can see, it's just a pretty open and barren wasteland, except for you'll come across villages like these. Now these aren't completely like normal villages because one, well, they've got some pretty interesting creatures in here. It's villagers with large blue heads, so they're some sort of alien. But they will grow saplings that you can harvest, and you'll use these in part 2 because there are other machines that will allow you to grow these on the moon. They've got their usual farms and all that, so it's just pretty much like a normal village except, well, on the moon. Now there are a few more things on the moon like cheese ore and those copper and tin ore that will spawn in caves like this one. In fact, there's a couple ore right there. And also when you're wandering around the moon, now these are pretty rare, but you'll find moon dungeons. Now I'll get to these in a later part because they're quite extensive. They can allow you to unlock schematics to bigger rockets and give you some pretty big rewards. So we've been around here long enough, seen a couple of those trees grow, and there's another one that just grew. So I think it's time for us to get back home. So let's go ahead and place our rocket launch pad down in the same 3x3 grid. Let's go ahead and place our rocket down as well. There we go. And now we got a fuel loader and that excess fuel that we had. Let's go ahead and place this down. And then I have a battery with me, so if you were to go back, you need one of those coal generators or other devices that I'm going to get to in part 2. But for right now, we're going to use this battery, and then we completely load it into our rocket. So as you can see, rocket's being loaded up again. So this time it should only go to about 60%, which will still be enough to get us home though. So now since we're completely loaded up, we'll just leave our stuff here since we're eventually going to come back, and then we have our usual countdown process. And now we're a little bit ways into our flight. You can see that the moon's ground is disappearing beneath us, and the meter on the left is going up much faster than it was before. And soon we're going to reach our solar map to make our way back home. And there we go, we're back to our map. Let's go ahead and select our Earth. And now our launch button is ready, so let's go ahead and click it. And now we'll be falling from the sky as we come back, but because we have a parachute, we're going to be falling much slower and not die. Also, you'll see this crate that's falling with us. That contains our rocket and our launch pads, just like before. And it's also on a parachute. Now, another thing to notice is that you will land, quite a ways away from where you spawned or, where your setup was. So you need to have a compass or some waypoints, a map or something to lead you back home because you can spawn a decent ways away. So now we have our fuel that we could put in our canister again. Let's go ahead and take it. See, we have 396, so we used 204 fuel to get back from the moon compared to 400 to get there. So we got that, and then we've got this chest that we can break and use. There we go. Take this, as it is a para chest that's automatically installed in a rocket that you build. So after a little bit of searching, I found my setup again because I landed over on the other side of that mountain down at the bottom of it. So it shows that you'll spawn a little bit farther away when you're falling down when you come back to Earth. So that's pretty much it for the basic way to get to the moon. It's not too much to where, you don't want to do it, takes too much time. It's not too little, and it shows, that space travel is, a little bit hard and it'll take you some time to achieve. But besides for that, if you like the video, leave a like and comment down below any other types of mods you want to review. I'll be doing part 2 and part 3 of this soon, and I'll see you all in the next video. High five.